Hey, fellow traveler. Welcome to the Third Eye Awakening podcast, a show where we talk all about spiritual and psychic awakening, magic, the shift from 3D to 5D, star seeds, ascension, multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, the universe, the multiverse, the Akashic records, all the good things. I am your host, Amy Belair, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Okay, let's do this. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Third Eye Awakening. I am very excited to be joined by David Sandercott today, who's going to talk to us about spiritual practices like meditation and prayer and how to find peace no matter what is happening in our external circumstances so that we can, navigate anxiety and eliminate anxiety. And David is a best-selling Amazon author. He's taught meditation on ABC and Fox. He's been helping people for over 10 years as a coach in business, spirituality, mindset, healing, weight loss, and more. He is the expert in helping people find the peace and happiness that they seek while creating the business they have always wanted. Welcome, David. I'm really, really excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Amy, and thank you for pronouncing my last name right. You didn't even have to ask me how to say it. Everybody messes that one up, so thank you.
Glad I could get it right.
Yeah.
So, David, I would love to hear a bit about your background and your story and kind of what brought you to this place in your life where you use spiritual practices to navigate the 3D world and, have found that it enhances your life to the extent that you really want to help other people find that experience as well.
Yeah. Well, in college, well over 20 years ago now, a good friend of mine looked at me in disgust and said, "Fat, drunk, and stupid's no way to go through life, Dave." And, he was right. It was 5 p.m. I was already drunk. I was overweight. I had no skills. I was going nowhere in life. I was doing nothing in life. So it really hit me like a ton of bricks. Thank God for good friends who will tell you like it is. And after that, shortly after that, I made significant changes in my life. I moved back in with my mom, which it wasn't cool back then. People didn't move back in with their parents after they went away. I had to. Thank God for that. So the only thing I knew was that life was better when I had a six pack. And so that's where I started. So I lost 33 pounds of fat. I gained 7 pounds of muscle. That really, I realized that, oh my God, I'm not stupid. I'm not, when I wasn't drunk for 4.5 years straight, I got sober and I started working out, I realized I wasn't stupid. I had this increased mental capacity. So I figured, well, there must be a way to figure out how to be successful. There must be a book on it. And I was lucky enough to find the book, Think and Grow Rich, the original unabridged version by Napoleon Hill. I devoured that book, and what I took from it is it told me I could be anything I wanted to do anything I wanted to do, so long as I made a decision to do it, believed in myself, and I meditated. That's what I took away from the book. And so I decided I would be the world's shortest high fashion model, and I would meditate my way there. And I really did that because I wanted to work out, because I really loved working out. I really always wanted to be an athlete. So that's what I set out to do. And within 3 years, I was in Vogue magazine, 6 pages, with supermodel Kate Dillon, the shortest man ever. And it happened to be one of the Vogue's most popular issues ever, because it was the first time they used a plus size model in their editorials. I was in Time magazine, like Ann Wintour, commented on me and talked about me in Time magazine. It was in over 100 publications, all the morning TV shows, and it was a really exciting thing. And even before that happened, I had so many miraculous things happen, from meditation, visualization, affirmation, positive thinking, and doing all those things and reading all these things that I read in Think and Grow Rich. It was like, why didn't they teach this in school? I would have been interested in this, why wouldn't? And so since I read that book, I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to help people. I wanted to help people on the road less traveled, sort of like me. I grew up in an area where all my friends, they all grew up to be suits. God bless them. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, I took the road less traveled. And so I really wanted to help people do that, because if I could do it, I knew that anybody could do it.
That's amazing. I love that story. And I love that, like, how you picked something that you really wanted to do, but that, our logical mind would say, well, the chances of that are really low and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure you were met with that in your own mind too, your own voices that were like, well, there aren't short, fashion models or blah, blah, blah. And you just stuck with it anyway, and it manifested. I love manifestation.
And let me tell you, because I think this is a really important distinction of how it was done, is that I didn't really have that self-doubt, because
Amazing.
I didn't have enough knowledge about the world. The book told me I could do it. I believed the book. And when people laughed at me or said it couldn't be done or whatever, it didn't even like phase me. I remember when I went to Chicago. So my first audition was for the Want to Be a VJ. I don't know if you remember that, but Dave Holmes complimented me on my $1.50 shirt I bought at the thrift store. He said, "Cool shirt, man." And in that line, I met a. I mean, this is how it works. Everything was so effortless and easy because I was just following what I was being guided to do. And I met Mike Pack that day, who was a producer on the Jenny Jones TV show. I don't know if you remember that, right?
I remember Jenny Jones.
And I knew right then the reason I went to that VJ interview wasn't to get the VJ job, but it was to meet Mike Pack. And I got to do like 3 episodes, six episodes over 2 seasons on the Jenny Jones show. So it was like me and then all my weightlifting friends. We got flown out there, we got the limo with the sign. We got put up in nice hotels, and we got to like really experience this amazing experience going on the Jenny Jones show. And I used that opportunity to get into modeling agencies in Chicago, which I was able to do. And then I went to New York, and I remember walking into these modeling agencies in New York, and the people that worked at the desk, they would laugh. They would say, "Oh my God, look at, you're so cute. You think you're too small. You can't do this." But it never even fazed me. I don't know why. It just, like I said, I knew it said I could do it, and I was going to do it no matter what.
That is amazing. And listeners, please, like, take a moment and absorb that, because my thing that I've discovered is that our beliefs are everything in this process. They are everything. That if we basically, it's like, which fire do you want to fuel? If you have 2 fires going, like nice controlled fires, there's a fire for all of your limiting beliefs, and there's a fire for, screw that, it can happen anyway, because which one do you want to put your fuel on? And it's really that simple, is just believing that it's possible and letting it unfold. But, we get all stuck in our mental constructs of like what is logical and what isn't logical, and all of our low self-worth stuff that we've received through life. I love it. The way that you're explaining it is almost like you had that sort of childlike faith that I learned about back in Sunday school, that if you have this childlike faith, you can, what is it? Like faith the size of a grain of mustard can move mountains.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's a perfect illustration of that. And just like, for whatever amazing, miraculous reason, the doubts didn't really register with you. You're just like, the book says, I'm doing it.
The book said, that's right. That was it. And it even deconstructed a little further, because it's interesting. I've never really done this before. There is no attachment, no concern whatsoever on how it was going to happen.
Yes. Yes.
That it didn't exist at that time. I just kept moving forward. I just kept believing in myself and doing what I would be doing if that was my goal,
But I love that. I love that so much. Like, this manifestation isn't more complicated than this, my friends. It really isn't. It really, really isn't. It's just like believing and having a good time along the way, and not getting hung up on, it having to look like this or how it's going to unfold, just like following the things. Oh, this is so good. So you had this amazing experience, basically proved to yourself that, no, go ahead.
The effort that went into it was every morning for at least a half hour and every night for at least a half hour, I meditated
Yes.
and I had a very clear visualization. And the visualization, because some people will say, well, I don't visualize. Well, I don't really see things either. It's a feeling, it's an energy, it's a posture that I was, I didn't know the shortest high fashion model was going to be in Vogue. It was a posture. It was a feeling. It was an attitude,
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that in because that was the most important part. I think that was the work, that was the work.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really glad that you specified that, because I think that is what happens is we hear the information, we take it really literally, and we think it has to be what I'm seeing. But when you're forcing the direction of the visualization, if you happen to be a visual person and you're kind of forcing it to fit into this trajectory all the time, but you're not feeling it on a kind of, it's not even necessarily an emotional level, it really is just a vibrational feeling level, like a beingness, then it doesn't matter. Like, it's not. And that's why I think people get discouraged, because they're like, but I do visualize every day. But if you visualize but your actual feeling is, I'm in scarcity and I don't have enough money, then all the visualization is not going to yield anything. You have to get into a feeling of being with like enough, and how it feels in your nervous system to be like, oh, I have enough. I have more than enough. And it's going to feel like bullshit at first for most of us, but you just keep doing it. I like to think of it as like, cuz I similarly have a practice. I meditate twice a day. In the morning it's for about 25 minutes, and then in the evening it's like, I don't know, 5 or 10 or 15 minutes right before I go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always about that feeling. And when I started with my most recent manifestation, it it felt at first like bullshit, but I kind of had figured out how the simulation works enough to be like, okay, that's fine. It feels like bullshit, but it's not. And I just framed it as like, well, I'm giving myself the gift of feeling how I want to feel anyway. Even if I don't have the thing, I get to, like, twice a day, I just get to feel like I have it. And that feels
That's
really
right.
good. And it's been so much fun. It's unfolded for me very similarly to what you're describing, like just things that you would call miraculous, but like little pieces being doled out along the way. And yeah, that feeling piece is really important.
It is. And so let's deconstruct it. Let's go one
Okay,
layer deeper,
let's
okay?
do it.
Because you're nailing it. It really is all about the feeling. And it's that feeling, if you have, so it's like once you know what the goal is, once the intention set, once you're clear on it, you have to be willing to let it go. You have to be willing to just completely surrender and not need it, and be
Yes.
completely at peace, whether you get it or not. And it's those feelings, I mean, it took me 15 years of people telling me to get this and to go back and to think, well, how did I used to do it? And then, and now, and it's that funny feeling in your gut, or that tightness in your chest, or that when you try and speak your goal, your throat gets tight and you don't really believe it. It's learning to let go of those feelings, right? And then replace it with like the feeling that you want, and having that state of gratitude, having that feeling as if it's already in your life. I mean, that's it. Did that make sense? Was that,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
totally makes sense. And it's like, it's not going to happen until you do that, because as long as you feel like you need it to happen and therefore you can't surrender it, what that's really betraying is a sense that you're not okay with the circumstances you're experiencing right now. So you have a lot of energy of like, Abraham Hicks uses this word, but I can't think of a better one, of resistance to
Yeah.
is happening. And I always imagine it like, I don't know, did you ever watch the Harry Potter movies?
I watched the first one like
Okay.
20.
Okay.
Yes.
So for all my Harry Potter fan listeners out there, in the second movie, there's a part where the three of them are trying to get into or maybe it's the first one actually. I think it is the first one, where they're trying to get into where the Philosopher's Stone is, and they get stuck in that tangle of, what's it called? It's a root. Damn it, I always know what it's called. Anyway, devil snare. So they're tangled in it. It's kind of like the same as quicksand. Like, the more that they fight against it, the tighter it squeezes around them. And then Hermione remembers like, oh, you just have to relax. and release all resistance. Just surrender to it and you just fall right through. It loosens up its grip. I feel like that's the mirage of reality. Like we think that what is physically manifested right now is real, but it's not any more real than the goal that we're holding. It's just that it's tangibly manifested. But if we're putting all of our energy into fighting against what is, physically, tangibly manifested right now, that's where all of our energy is going. So it's not going to powering up our goal. And as when we just surrender and accept the circumstances we're in and just be like, oh, it's no big deal, it's a mirage, it's going to change. Everything changes in life in every moment. Then it leaves all this space for everything to unfold perfectly without us trying to micromanage every tiny detail of it.
It's absolutely correct. You're not in control, so why pretend like you are?
Yeah.
And what you resist persists. That's just what I always tell them. What you resist will persist.
Totally. So you basically mastered manifestation like fairly early in life, and you did it like, not on like a tiddlywinks kind of little thing. You made something really big happen for yourself that I'm sure completely solidified the beliefs that you already had, was a reflection of the beliefs that you had and that you cultivated through the work that you were talking about. And then you decided you wanted to help other people do that because you're like, life is fucking awesome and it can be so much better than what we generally think. And I would love to show you the way.
Yeah, well, the road wasn't quite as straight and narrow and as smooth as that, unfortunately. I mean, I would say in 1998, after I read that book, I knew I wanted to be a coach. And I would say it took to 2016 before I really, really went after it. And really almost 2018, but 2016 is definitely when I started. And so, yeah, there was a lot of ups and downs. It worked so beautifully. Everything worked. I mean, even before I got into Vogue, my first year in Los Angeles, right? People always say that, the movie business is hard. Moving to LA is tough. I mean, I had such a blessed introduction to that industry. It was unbelievable. Again, it was like, I said an agent in 30 days. I want to be in the union in 90 days. I meditated and visualized it. It took me 33 days to get an agent. It took me 72 days to get into the union. Now I'm in the union. Now I can earn money now. And now I'm starting to book commercials. And it was like, there was a strike coming. I moved out there. Everything was going great. And there was a strike. And the last day I worked, I shot a commercial where I made like $18,000 and I didn't work again for like 4 months. It was just like so blessed. So it just kept getting better and better and better and all these miraculous things. Now, all of my friends, not all of them, but a lot of my friends moved from Michigan. They moved out to California. All my friends always sort of had a little bit more money than I did. They were kind of from, more wealthy families. To some degree, I fell back into what I thought people wanted me to be. I mean, I have no complaints. It wasn't their fault. I had a great life. Yep. I loved my 20s living at Hermosa Beach and having fun, but but it distracted from my career. Okay. Right. I got a little lazy and everything, and I had fun. And eventually it was the, constantly being in shape and dieting and working out. It lost its importance to me. Mm. But I used the same technique for manifesting a bartending career, which, that doesn't sound all that exciting, but nonetheless, I used the same thing for that. I used the same thing to live in Santa Monica, to live in Venice on the beach and pay less than $500 a month in rent. How do you do that? That doesn't make sense, right? Like how do you do that? And I used all these techniques to do that. I wanted to travel the world. I got to do that all these times. And then, so I broke my foot in 5 places, and I'm going to tell you, let me just tell you the story real quick. So I was teaching myself how to ride a motorcycle on a ranch off-road. And that day I rode it a little bit like James Bond. Like I jumped, I slid out, and I was like, oh, I'm doing, because it was hard for me. It's hard, And I was putting the motorcycle away, and I was thinking, God, I'm a great motorcycle rider. And this fence post just out of nowhere jumped in front of me. I rolled the throttle instead of hitting the brake. I literally, with the force of my foot and the bike, I knocked a wooden fence post out of the ground, and hit a rock, and it flipped me over and threw me off the bike, which was good, or it could have been a lot worse. And it flipped me over the bike. So my first instinct was, well, if you just stand up real quick, it won't hurt. And so I stood up and fell right back down, And then the very next thought that came into my mind, and this is the importance of programming, the very next thought was, all adversity brings with it the seed of equal or greater opportunity. That was the very first thought that came into my mind when that happened. And that comes right from Think and Grow Rich, because I've read that book 30 times, Now, I handled it okay in the beginning, but I eventually gained 40 pounds. I lost the business. It was, I couldn't walk for 6 months. I did okay initially, but the end result was me in the fetal position for over 3 weeks, wanting to end my life. I was Googling how not to commit suicide. And I think the only thing that got me through it was the same thing that got me through AA in my early 20s, was one day at a time. Just don't kill yourself today. I'm laughing. I'm making a joke out of it because I like humor, but that was what got me through it. It's like, just don't do it today.
Yeah.
And so that got to the point where, I literally was in the depths of hell. I don't know. I hadn't meditated probably in months. I totally went to sleep. I don't even know how to explain it. It's like, I wasn't me. I was totally asleep. All the things I knew, everything I knew about life and success, it was like, it was gone. And I don't know. I opened up an email from a spiritual teacher of mine that I studied with, like, woke me up, and it wasn't me, right? Something took over. I got on my knees and I surrendered my life to God. And I gave up all desires for material possessions, for wealth, because, that's in the end what brought my energy down in LA. No matter how well I did, no matter what income level I got to, somebody had more. I wanted more. That doesn't make you happy. It doesn't, it's a temporary happiness that goes away, and then you want more. And it's an awful cycle to be in. So I just wanted the peace that I felt when I sat and when I was connected to God, Spirit, the divine, and surrendering my life in that moment. Everything changed. I started meditating 2 hours a day that day, and I haven't stopped yet. And the significance of that is that's what it was, the requirement to become a meditation teacher, spiritual teacher, at least with the organization I was a part of. It took 2 hours a day for 2 years, that plus a bunch of other things, but that was the training required. So that's why that 2 hours was significant. And everything in my life started to change. And I just asked for, I surrendered. I didn't know. And I was guided to massage school, not something that I thought ever would have happened. But it did make sense because I knew I wanted to be a coach, and it was a way to start developing and working with people. And so I went to massage school. And so this was the greatest blessing and one of the hardest years of my life. So because we sort of talked in the beginning about awakening and a spiritual awakening, and it is not unicorns and rainbows.
No,
okay?
it's not.
It is. Now, that's what I thought it was. In my mind, I was going to transcend and just skip over all the issues but no, what the reality is it brings it up, in yoga in India, it's like the fire, the serpent coiled at the base of the spine, the Kundalini energy,
Yes.
It pierces through your samsara. Your samsaras are your issues, we'll say, right? So it brings it to the surface. It forces you to deal with everything. So,
Yes.
And the reason why body work is so powerful, body work is a lot like psychotherapy. It brings up all the same things, and the healing works in the same ways, that there's an observer having you go through this. Not the body work you get at Massage Envy, but, I was lucky enough to be trained by a really great therapist. And so I'm receiving work like this 3 times a week. I'm meditating 2 hours a day. I'm losing 40 pounds. The weight too, weight, like I actually have to lose 20 pounds right now. I can't believe it. But the weight is they say, like, pain is weakness leaving your body. And I know that sounds like a real ultra masculine, or like we're a meathead type of thing. But as I was running day after day after day, there was no other way to explain it. That it was the pain was weakness leaving my body. Not weakness in like lifting strength, but it was the issues. It was the things I needed to deal with. It was the pain. I mean, There was one day I was running and I have this voice in my head that talks to me every once in a while, as if it's you and me talking to each other. When I was 17, I was in a car accident. We're going 100 miles an hour. And it was the first time I heard my voice, and it told me to put on my seatbelt. Again, as if we're talking. And it was the first time in my life I ever put on a freaking seatbelt in my life. Now, I didn't put the shoulder strap on. I negotiated. I was like, I'll put on the seatbelt, but I'm going to take this part out. You know, it was like a 94.
Yeah.
And we got into a car accident that day. Well, I mean, I still smashed the windshield, the dashboard. I have a big scar on my forehead. You may or may not be able to see it. But if I didn't have that seatbelt on, I would not be here today. So it was that voice that talked to me while I was running one day. And it said, finish what you started. And then it was like, just this explosion of tears that just, it was like, I couldn't, and then it was gone. And then I was at complete peace, you know, and that, those words have been guiding me for the last 10 years. So I'm getting, the point that I'm trying to make is I was going through a lot of healing. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going through a lot of stuff was coming up, and it was probably the hardest. And then even the next year after massage school, this was probably the hardest 2 years of my life with emotions. And I was having, through massage school, I was having panic attacks. I didn't even know what a panic attack was. You know, my teacher did. I almost wanted to punch him in the face at the end of the year. And I said, you know, what's been happening is that I think I've been having panic attacks. He's like, oh yeah, that's what it is. And they just let me think I was crazy. And, you know, it was like something was coming up. But anyways, I learned to deal with those things. I haven't had anxiety. I haven't had depression in over 10 years. And so, you know, I do like to teach that anti-anxiety, anti-depression formula. But before we get on to that, I just want to clear, it is hard work. It is your purpose in life is to spiritually evolve. Mm-hmm. And anything worth having, accomplishing, it requires work. It requires effort. It requires things. And it's like, I remember I lived with this lady who, you know, she's like, it doesn't have to be painful. And I was like, you know, I guess you're right. It doesn't. But the reality is that you're making a judgment of it being painful anyways. It's just feelings, and you just have to sit and be with the feelings. You don't need to judge them. You don't need to label them. You certainly don't want to repress them anymore. You just want to feel your feelings. There's nothing you really need to do, nowhere you need to go. There's just feelings to feel.
Yeah. And they're transient, first of all, like in their nature. That's why they're related to the water element, because they're constantly in flux. So our feelings, like we are so in Western culture, I just feel like, just like you were saying about like school, like why don't they teach this in school? There's so many things that would actually benefit us that they do not teach us in school, because I personally believe they don't want us to have this.
No, of course not.
But it's a lot of it is so simple. And like some of it, for example, is that I'm talking about right now, is that our feelings are not our enemy. It is a messenger, and it alchemizes us. Our feelings alchemize us. So if we could just surrender to the feeling that's there, not resist it, let it be there, let it do its job. What it's going to do is it's going to bring up a message that we're, you know, of something we're ready to know about ourselves.
That's right.
And it's that message is going to have the effect of changing us. If we receive that message, it will change us forever. And sort of, it feels to me like an up level. And, you know, up levels are, on one hand, they kind of are linear, but on the other hand, it's all over the place, right? So it's not like, oh, ascension is a perfect ladder, and you're totally right. It's not rainbows and unicorns, but that's what kind of awaits us. That's the shiny carrot, but the process to get there sure doesn't feel like that. Right. But our emotions are not our enemy. And I really appreciate your sharing that part of your life experience of breaking your foot and how it made you feel, because I personally have my perspective, the way that I see trauma is that it's so hard, and yet it carries a gift with it. And the gift is that it breaks down the illusory constructs that we have about who we are in the world and what is possible for us. And we, like, true trauma, whether it's micro traumas or it's like a big event, they have this effect of really shattering our sense of self. And if we know how to navigate it, it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt and that it's not painful, but we can do it in such a way that we don't feel diminished by it, where we ultimately discover there's only ever more of ourselves and more like true power, more ability, more magic, I like to describe it as. But because we aren't taught this, we feel constantly terrorized by our triggers. We feel decimated by our traumas. And we often, a lot of people stay in this place of, just feeling that fetal position and that those panic attacks as those, really intense feelings come up. But it's not easy at all. It is, yeah, it's very painful to our, it's not just our ego. I mean, it is our ego, but ego can sound so trite, but it's just the perception of who we think we are. And
that's right. All pain and suffering comes from not knowing who you are,
yeah,
and attachments to the illusions
yeah,
of the world,
yeah,
to that which is
exactly.
not real.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the work. That's what we're here to do, is come to know ourselves and to let go of, again, sort of going back to how I ended up in Vogue. It's like the two things is not knowing who we are and then having attachments to our results. It's like we're supposed to do the work to the best of our ability, the most mindful, the most intentful, doing it as if we're doing it for God. But the result has nothing to do with us. We have to learn to let go of the result, to have an expectation of the result. Our job is to do the work.
yeah.
The result's up to God.
Yes. And when we can leave it up to God, like when we really succeed at surrendering that from a place of trust, the results always end up being like 1,000 times better than we could have imagined from our, ego identity mind.
That's right. That's right. People have a lot of resistance to writing goals. They think they're very clever by telling me, well, because I don't want to limit myself. And so I say, well, then we always end with, or something better.
Yeah, that's right. Just leave that nice open end there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or something better. That's right. And no matter what happens, it's better. It's funny because, well, that's going on. I'm a big fan of goals, of writing down goals. And I'm a big fan of writing down timelines to goals. But then some of my clients will say, you're so contradictory, because I make people write down the time, the day, the year, the time. But then you have to totally let go of that date.
Yeah.
The time is irrelevant. It's not real. You're going to reach your goals just so long as you keep moving towards them and you never give up. Your goals are certain. And the time, it's just a way that we measure or keep track, and it's really not important at all.
Right. And so do you use it more as a tool to like help motivate you to like, keep putting in the work, basically? Like
Absolutely.
If you have a deadline, then you keep showing up for it.
Not only at the end of the month, but at the end of the year. I mean, I had one year, it was 6 p.m., right? It was, and it was like someone called me. This is when I was doing massage, and I just ended at like 4:30, and someone's like, "Is there any chance you can see me today? It's New Year's Eve at 5 o'clock." I'm like, "Come on in." I mean, I finished it like 3 minutes before 6, and that was what I needed to put me over the goal. And so it's just, you have to keep working to the end, and
yeah.
How many times I've made sales on the 30th or the 31st is I can't even count. It's almost like that's when they happen.
Yeah, that's right. I heard somebody describe it once as like comparing it to running, that if you have like, the finish line in mind, a lot of people will slow down as they get to the finish line because mentally they're already past it, and they're but it's from an energy of like, oh, I can finally stop sustaining the work. Whereas if you look past the finish line, like you acknowledge that it's there, but you look past it and you keep going and maintain your momentum, then that's what gets you over the finish line in the best time that you're capable of achieving. And it kind of reminds me of the same thing that you're talking about.
Well, it's such an excellent point, since we're really breaking down goals and manifesting, and you're absolutely right. I mean, so you have a goal, and that's really important. And then you got to have another goal because you already made the decision that you're going to reach that goal. It's guaranteed. So what are you going to do after you reach that goal? You got to have another goal. And so absolutely. And that's how you blow past that finish line. Yes, I agree 100% with that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. Well, this is such a fun conversation about manifestation, the reality of it, and where the work actually is, but also where the magic is. But just before we started recording, we were both talking about how we each field quite a lot of questions about, or, comments like, I don't know how to meditate. I can't seem to meditate. And I would love to hear what you say to people in response to that, because I know it's a hang up for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll start by quoting a quote from Henry Ford from Think and Grow Rich that says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right.
Totally.
So it's like, I don't know. I just never had that in my mind. Again, the book told me I have to meditate. At least that's what I took away from it. And so I just did it. I just started, and I can tell you the first time I meditated, there was a microwave, and I set it for like 5 minutes. And then I ran and I put my back up against a chair in the living room or whatever. And I sat and I meditated, and I think I passed out for an hour. I don't know what happened. I just, it was, and that's how I started. And 5 minutes. And, as you practice, it's just like anything, your dedication and your devotion towards it grows, and everything just keeps getting better and better and better and better. Now, a lot of people think that meditation is, and to their, understanding, most YouTube, I don't know, I've only watched like 2 meditations on YouTube, so I can't say most, but but they definitely start out with take a deep breath and clear your mind. Yeah. Okay. You cannot stop mental effort with mental effort. It's not about clearing your mind.
Yeah.
that will happen naturally as part of the process. But what I like to say is never mind your mind. It doesn't mind. And the reality is, as described in the 8 limbs of yoga, you're very fortunate to ever actually meditate by that definition, to be in a state of being where you're just being. There's not an observer. There's nothing being observed. You're just is. It's like when your mind goes totally silent and you're out of your body. And time can be a minute, it can be an hour, and you don't know. You're very fortunate to ever get to that for an extended period of time. And it's highly unlikely that you'll do it without a teacher, without an advanced teacher. So what I really am teaching people mostly is concentration. And so it's like the third eye, right? Isn't that the name of this podcast? Yeah. The third eye, right? So it's like throughout every spiritual scripture I've ever written, it talks about, the people want to talk about all these different types of meditations and stuff. They're not really that even, So, but the third eye, put all your attention and focus on your third eye. So it's like your mind's going to do what it's going to do. And then, but you just bring your attention back to your third eye, and it'll start where like you can get into like pages and pages of a story before you even realize it. And then you just bring your attention back to your third eye. And then it'll get to maybe you only get a few paragraphs, and you'll realize your mind's, and you come back to your third eye. And then it'll just be a paragraph, and you come back to your third eye. And it'll be a few sentences, you come back to your third eye. It'll just be the beginning of the thought, you come back to your third eye. And then you can literally feel the energy of the thought, and you come back before your third eye. And then eventually you can hold that state for extended periods of time. Now, it only took me 20 years of daily practice to get there, And it by no means happens all the time. And to be honest with you, it's like there was a period not that long ago where my practice was 4 hours a day of meditation. That 4th hour day of meditation, I was gone. There was tears rolling down my eyes. It was so blissful. And I believe it sort of changed me forever. You can't unlearn things that you learn. You can, but now it's not like that every day. And the fun thing about meditation is that every day is different. Every meditation is different. And even if you sat there for a half hour and your mind went blah, 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 blah the whole time, it's okay. It's just what you needed. If you fell asleep, it's okay. That's what you needed.
Mm-hmm.
And go on.
Well, I agree with everything you're saying, and I feel like that's just it. And this is very similar to what I share with people too. And I'm just sharing, I never went to any kind of, I never took a meditation program. Like basically I don't know, I just did it. But it wasn't even super disciplined for me. Like I would go through periods where I was disciplined and I would do it every day. I was working as a midwife for a number of years and you're on call all the time. So like it's also hard to settle into that state of like, when you know your pager could go off. And so my practice was by no means perfect, not even close. But I think the important thing is that I still showed up for it when I could as I was, and released my expectations that there is a right way to meditate. And I also am somebody that falls asleep very easily. So a lot of the time my meditations are like, semi asleep. Like I can't lie down because I will totally fall asleep when I meditate. And I just let that be okay. But now meditation is so easy for me, just like you were saying. Like it's just the process of like cultivating that ability to return your focus. And some days I have great meditations where it feels like my focus doesn't even wander and I truly enter that space of like where I don't even really feel myself anymore, I'm just existing. But most days, honestly, it's like, my mind will start to wander to kind of a semi dream state of nonsensory, and I'll realize it and bring it back, or it'll start to think about what I need to do later this day and then I'll bring it back. And also, it just some days it doesn't feel like a good meditation. It feels like the whole time, like you said, my mind is chattering, but the point is I still showed up to do it. And
Right.
so and on the occasional day where I don't, because I don't wake up, I do it before my daughter wakes up. Basically she's 2.5, so I let her sleep in with my husband and I get up early and do my meditation. On the days that I don't manage to do it for whatever reason, even then I'm still easy on myself because I know it probably means I needed more sleep, but I'm committed to this at this time in my life. On those days that I don't do it, I can feel the effects of not doing it within the rest of my day. And it's still, less ideal. The way that my day unfolds and the way I feel within my day is less optimal than if I wake up and have a meditation that is kind of crappy and my brain, chatters at me the whole time. It's really just showing up and doing it with some commitment, I think, is.
That's right. Four agreements. Always do your best. Your best going to be different every day.
Yeah, and I love what you said. Exactly. It's going to be different every day, and that's fine. It's fine. It isn't about having a blank mental state. It can be. It can be.
Yeah, just be grateful when you get there. That's all. Those are.
Yeah. I think we definitely make it more challenging in our minds than it has to be. And I do agree that that's probably messaging that we've received that is inaccurate. Some of it is probably just by accident, like we just pick up a false understanding. And some of it is probably kind of like that. There's some, in my opinion, in the new age community, there's like some psyopy information, like false things are presented falsely to sort of distract.
Half of the stuff, if you were to muscle test it, would have you go weak.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think some of the ways that meditation is presented, and I'm not saying those people have nefarious intentions, it's just the idea behind it is inaccurate. And a lot of us are. I also used to think in my early 20s, I can't meditate. I can't, like, so I so relate to the people that.
Yeah, I relate to him too. But so let me give some tips. Let me give you some
Yeah.
advice, and let me talk about that. So like you, I meditated on my own. I never had a teacher. I didn't even know you could get a teacher. I didn't know that was a thing. And people would like read books. Sometimes I would talk about it with people. I remember one time my mom came home and I was meditating on the couch and she yelled at me, "What are you doing? Sitting there doing nothing in the dark? What's wrong with you?" And so it was like, I didn't even talk about meditation. I didn't even tell people I was doing it, so how much the world's changed, since then. And then I would run into people and they say, "Oh, I'm reading a book on meditation." And that always like, well, how do you do that? Like, I don't understand. What is it? I don't even understand. So then when I came to write a book about meditation, I really wanted to make it, it includes a 21-day meditation course in it to get people meditating. But I think it covers a lot in the beginning. So if you want this, I encourage you to get the book because it's free. But I have like the 5 Ps, which I honestly, if I go into it, I'll forget one probably right now. But it's purpose. It's like so many people want to know what their life purpose is, right?
Yeah.
And like I can tell you, it's to evolve your consciousness.
Right.
It's to evolve spiritually. Okay, now how that looks might be different in each people, but that is our purpose. So, but it's to get a purpose. Like for me, so I meditated for 12 years before I really, really, really got that dedication and devotion to sit day in and day out. It's been 10 years since I've missed a day,
Right.
And it's not that I didn't meditate a lot those 12 years or I didn't practice, but that's what it took. And it's because I had a very clear purpose, and that purpose was all I wanted was the peace. My life, I was not doing my life right. I clearly was doing something wrong. Give it to God, and all I want is that peace. And that's, as a coach, when I work with people, whether it's business or life coaching or helping them with anxiety, it all comes down to people want peace, happiness, and freedom. That's what people want. That's what I want. That's what coming to know yourself will give you. So having that purpose and being clear on it. And then patience, because like I said, you just heard how long it took, even though I started right away at an hour a day, unbroken for a year, manifested all these amazing things. Somehow I said, well, I stopped, and I kind of just did it like some days I did, I did it most days, and so patience, be patient with yourself in all things. It's like, just keep intending. Don't be, so many people go into guilt or shame and beating themselves up. Don't do that. Just keep intending and love yourself and be kind to yourself, And the third is people. It is like, so I'm a big fan of having a teacher because it helps me a lot and because I see how much it helps my students. So, I host 4 meditations a week. I do this for love. I'm not in any way getting rich from this. There is a financial sort of commitment to join the group, but it's very small. And it's because there's power in a group. And it's like, by power is synonymous for me with love. Okay, power and love are synonymous when I use those words, but it's you have more people coming together in love for love, and the deeper, and then they all deepen their dedication and devotion because there's other people there in a sense that are counting on them, right? It becomes like a family, it becomes a community, and it's just like, if you can't meditate, come to my group, and I promise you're going to be able to meditate because you're going to get the benefit of the group, of that energy. It's almost like an energy healing. That, if you get around someone who's an advanced energy healer, you can start seeing chakras, or if they can see chakras, you can see chakras. If they can see auras, you can see auras. If you get around their energy technique, your energy technique or whatever is going to become more powerful. It's the same thing. You're up leveling your vibration because you're stepping into a high vibration. Western medicine is unable to cure alcoholism and addiction. They were completely hopeless until AA came along. Why does AA work? Because its energy level is unconditional love. It's the energy level of the group that cures, that helps people recover.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing with surrounding yourself with people like that. See, look, I've gone 3, and now I'm already kind of, I don't know what the other 2 are. I forget.
Well, that's okay, because it's a perfect teaser for people to actually go and get your free book, because that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You agree with what I said? It helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I didn't even think about the people part, and that's so valuable. It's so true. Like because it kind of takes, for a lot of us, we feel selfish in committing to ourselves, or we just feel unworthy, or some weird bullshit we picked up along the way. And when you factor in the people part and the community and the family and coming together and amplifying that power, it becomes less about you. Like, you're benefiting from it exponentially, but you're also showing up for a reason other than just for yourself. That's right. Get you over the hump of those weird thoughts until you realize that yourself is a perfectly valid reason to show up for it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, I love that. Those are amazing, amazing tips for people so there you go, everybody. David and I agree. You heard it here, that we can all meditate. And that really the key is to release the expectations around meditation and to just do it and be patient with yourself. And I highly recommend, so I have to share, this is a perfect segue because David has these 3 beautiful, beautiful offerings that he let me know about. So one is the copy of the book, a 21-day meditation journey, wherein you will find out the other 2 P's. So check it out. And it's at www.meditatewithdavid.com. And I will have all these in the show notes linked up for ease for listeners. And then he also shared a free copy of the Profits from Passion playbook. So I'm assuming that's kind of like a strategy workbookish kind of thing for how to make money off of the things that you're passionate about.
Yeah, I mean that's how I earn a living. That's
Yeah.
as a coach, really helping people, because so many people have a skill or a talent or a dream to start a business, and it's really it's 10 disrupting habits you need to eliminate. It's almost about
Okay,
like
great.
to help you to get the mindset to get the courage and the self-confidence to take that leap of faith and start.
Yeah, that's amazing. I definitely find in my readings that, like you said, almost everybody wants to know what their purpose is. They want to know how amazing they are, basically, because they know they are amazing on some level. And that none of us want to be here and just do something meaningless with our time here. So many of us have a sense that it can be different. We can
Yeah, you're not meant to.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
even a quote, I think Jesus says that, if you don't do what you love, you are that poverty. I'm
Yes.
paraphrasing it, but
Yeah.
you're here to do what you love.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the third free gift is that you can schedule a free Profits from Passion coaching session with David at schedulewithdavid.com. The playbook is at profitswithdavid.info. But again, I'll have the links in the show notes for everybody for ease. I'm definitely going to check out those free offerings that you have, because I just think that's so generous and so amazing that you created those and that you're sharing them with people to empower them wherever they are on their journey. And David, this has been a fantastic conversation. I feel like we really, really deconstructed the manifestation process really
Yeah.
well. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too. I don't think I've ever quite gone in depth with it. Sometimes I just glaze over things, because I kind of assume, but I'm glad that we went deep into that.
Yeah, that was fun. And I got to say that you've had a really amazing life experience, and I really appreciate you sharing those parts of your journey with us and the learning and the evolution that you showed up for through all of those experiences. I feel like I am expanded just hearing about them, so I'm sure the listeners will be too.
Oh, thank you, Amy. Thanks for having me. It was a real pleasure.
And thank you so much, everybody, for your time and your attention to this episode today. I appreciate you more than I can say. If you enjoyed this episode, then please screenshot yourself listening to it and tag David and I. His social media links are in the show notes as well. Just makes our hearts feel warm and fuzzy when you do that. But otherwise, we just appreciate you listening at all. And I hope you have a beautiful day or night wherever you are. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much for being here with me on this episode. I appreciate you more than my words could ever say. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you on the next episode.